The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As you all know by now, we've teamed with BetMGM, and we're using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for you guys each and every week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. Now, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM, use code ON3, and you'll get up to $1,500 new player offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Plus, 50% off an annual subscription to the On3 College Sports Network. Here's how it works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. And your code for 50% off an annual subscription to the On3 College Sports Network in your BetMGM inbox once your first bet is placed. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make it one for the history books. Make it legendary. Welcome into the Hard Count presented by BetMGM. It is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. Last one on the face of the planet. Football fans, listen, we are in a bit of a dark part of the year because they're no longer playing games, both at the professional level, at the collegiate level. So we're kind of licking our wounds a little bit here on this side of things. But that is it's no excuse for us to not talk college football, as we do every single day right here on the On3 YouTube channel. College football season never ends on this show. So if you're a sicko, welcome home. Glad to have you here. We'll all lock arms. We'll wrap our arms around you, rather, if you're new to the show. Glad to have you a part of the sicko community. If you are interested in using a no-sweat token from BetMGM and you want to do something related to college football, the national title odds are already out. So if you're saying, hey, you know what, JD, I feel pretty good about this gut feeling I have about the Miami Hurricanes. I want to go ahead and lock that one in today, Junior. Well, if that bet ends up not hitting, get your money back in bonus bets per the good folks over at BetMGM. I mentioned Miami because you know what today, y'all? We got Mario Cristobal, head coach of the Canes, joining the show today. Great conversation, right around 20 minutes. We talk Darian Mensah. We talk what they learned from that playoff run. We talk about what the 2026 roster is going to look like with all the additions they made through the portal. Malachi Toney being an absolute psychopath, visiting with the offensive line room early on in the morning, talking about protections. Again, he's a wide receiver, true freshman. So great conversation there. We'll unpack that together. Also today, it's a Top 10 Tuesday, baby. Top 10 Tuesday. Who are the best set-up teams in college football over the next 3 years? We'll go 10 up to 1 here in a matter of moments. But I want to start with this because we just had the Super Bowl played. And watching Sam Darnold be the first USC quarterback ever, not just to play in the Super Bowl, which is a jarring thing in general, to win a Super Bowl, just can't help but think about the guy's career a little bit because I think it's a good little Tuesday pep talk for us here to start the week. There is something to be said for both in college football and in life to just staying the course, man. Just staying the course. Because Sam Darnold, 5 different teams in 8 seasons, everyone knows that. Dude wasn't even like the hottest name of his recruiting class at the quarterback position. It was Ricky Town. Saying, Ricky who? Exactly. Sam Darnold was like a big get. He was a nice addition. He was a high-profile recruit, all those things. But like he wasn't the name that got people all hot and bothered when he signed to USC. And so I think in today's age, in society, both in college football, like everyone's so quick to play out what the future's supposed to look like. Well, in 3 years, I'll be at this job, and I'll be at this place, and then if it doesn't happen, I'll pivot this way, and if I'm dating this person, we should be married by here. Just stay the course, dude. Just keep showing up. Like 75 to 80% of life is just showing up and not getting discouraged, not looking too far ahead. Play the next play. Be where your feet are. Like, that's what Sam Darnold did. Super Bowl champion. At the top of the football world the other night. Why? Because he continued to show up. You know how many times Sam Darnold could have mailed it in? Oh, well, I'm not supposed to be the guy at USC, so maybe I should think about transferring. Stay the course. Well, I threw as many picks in my second season at USC, the first half of the season, rather than I did in the first season. Stay the course. Ends up being a first-round draft pick, pretty highly rated first-round NFL draft pick. Pretty highly selected, I should say, first-round NFL draft pick. From the Jets to the Niners, like, it was all over the place. Just keep staying the course, keep showing up. Good things happen. A little Tuesday pep talk to get your week started the right way. But to keep your week started the right way, I want to do this same segment we did around this time last year. Top 10 teams in college football set up for the most success for the next 3 years. Now, to define what we're looking at here in this list, a couple of factors I put a pretty high emphasis on. One, stability. Like, is your head coach who's there right now going to be there over the course of the next 3 years? Is your roster in a good place stability-wise? Do you have depth, or at least do I feel good about you having depth over the course of the next 3 years? Resources. Everyone wants to talk about buying players, and everyone's got to take on NIL. Y'all, if you don't have resources, you're not competing for anything. Full stop. You can talk about buying players, but if you have a problem with buying players and buying talent, buying a talented roster, and you're complaining about it, means you probably don't have a lot of money to go buy talent, which means you're probably not winning a lot of football games. We're factoring that in here pretty heavily. Access to the playoff. This is important now. There's a couple of teams on this list that maybe I think more of certain rosters behind them, but I feel better about them for the next 3 years because they got a pretty good path to the college football playoff. And by that logic, pretty good path to a 3 to 4 game run to go win a national championship. So we're factoring that in pretty heavily. And then right in line with resources, your trends when it comes to adding talent. Now, stars aren't everything, but they matter a lot. Okay, but make no mistake about it. If you have good football players on your football team, you should feel better about winning more football games. That's not rocket science. That's how football works. We'll start in at number 10. Got the LSU Tigers. All right, if the football math works out with Lane Kiffin and the resources in Baton Rouge and that logo and that brand power, it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be Mona Lisa stuff out there for the good folks in the boot, because you look at what happened with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And we said this when he ended up taking the job in Baton Rouge. You look at what he did at Ole Miss, and it was impressive. I mean, got him to the college football playoff this past year, best season in school history, all those things. And you did it at a place with a good logo. You have a Tier 1 logo at LSU. Something Lane Kiffin talked about a lot during his National Signing Day press conference about a week ago for the Tigers. He's like, we got kids committing here and staying committed and recommitting before I even took the job at LSU. Like, this place in general is pretty special. So now you have an individual who is going to work tirelessly to go add talent at the high school level and at the portal level. I think it's going to make for some really good things. Resources will never be a problem at LSU. Brand power will never be a problem at LSU. Now, the college football playoff is, as it stands right now, going to be a bit of a gauntlet to, be the team from the SEC that gets in. But I mean, LSU, as long as Lane Kiffin's the head coach there and we can trust what he did at Ole Miss to carry over to LSU, should feel pretty good about them being in a good spot here over the course of the next 3 years. So they're down a couple of spots from where they were a year ago because, hand up, I missed on the whole Brian Kelly experience at LSU. Without seeing it yet play out in reality, I got LSU as a top 10 team in college football over the course of the next 3 years when it comes to them being set up for success for the future. All right, now at number 9, I got Texas A&M. Feels like to me Mike Elko has pulled the sword out of the stone. Now I'm gonna be a little bit nerdy here because I was homeschooled not for a long time, but for like a year and a half. So that means I went to the library a little bit and maybe we took some videos from the library, VHS for those of y'all that are dialed into that. And one of the hits in the VHS world is King Arthur and the Sword and the Stone. And the way that story goes is everyone's trying to pull this sword out of the stone. Doesn't matter how strong you are, you can't do it until the right person comes along. And King Arthur is the guy that is chosen by the sword to then extract it from that stone. I'm going somewhere with this. Again, it didn't matter what the credentials were of the previous coach. Didn't matter the resume of the previous coach or the recruiting class of the previous coach. For whatever reason, nobody could get A&M activated. Mike Elko has been the King Arthur to Excalibur, has been A&M's activator to all they have in-house when it comes to resources, roster talent, culture, all those things. And so if you're going to go ahead and break the curse that stood for however long in College Station and be the guy to get them to college football playoff your second year on the job, I'm going to feel pretty good about what you're able to do when it comes to a 3-year runway. A&M is always going to be, I think, as long as they're winning on the field, able to recruit. I think as long as Elko's the head coach out there, they're always going to be tough on defense. And I don't get the sense that he's looking to go anywhere anytime soon. So I feel really good about him being the head coach there for the next 3 seasons. Again, the SEC is brutal, but A&M is number 9 when it comes to teams set up for success over the course of the next 3 years. Jimbo tried, Sumlin tried, and had success in different respects, but they were never able to actually maximize what A&M is. I think Elko is able to do that in College Station. Now at number 8, I got Texas. this is the team that I have the least idea of what to do with in these rankings. Because a year ago now, they were number 1 in these rankings for me. Remember, after last season, they had made 2 semifinal games each of the last 2 seasons. They were entering into the Arch Manning era. We trusted all the line of scrimmage and the skill players, all those things. And then the year went how it went this past season, and it kind of leaves you feeling a little bit uneasy if you're a Texas fan. But you're looking at 2026 and saying, this is our year, JD. Going to make you eat your crow, eat your words. We're going to go win a national championship this year. I was talking to Cato before we got on the air. I might pick Texas to win the whole darn thing when it comes to August. I might. And I have them at number 8. Now, why is that? Go back to what I said this list is about for me when it comes to criteria. One of the top things on that list is stability. Now, I love the roster at Texas. I love the resources at Texas. I love the brand power at Texas. I love the quarterback stability with Arch Manning this year, and then you got Diabell here for years to come, so it's never going to be a talent issue. The thing I don't know what to do with Texas is I don't know the future for Steve Sarkisian. Because remember, there was that buzz of like, oh, he might be interested in NFL jobs, and then CAA came out pretty quickly and was like, nope, not a real thing. Sark's happy. And I'm not telling you there was any smoke to that didn't come out from CAA. I'm not saying that was a fake statement. All I'm saying is this has been something that seems to always be a conversation, if for nothing else, like fan circles. And so my question is, if I'm Steve Sarkisian, is there ever a desire to get back to the NFL? I don't know. I don't feel good about where I have Texas right now. If you told me Sark's going to be the next head coach there, or going to be the head coach there, rather, for the next 3 seasons, top 5, top 3 on this list. But because I don't know what to do with Sark and his future. Not saying there's a real question there. I'm just saying for me personally, I don't know what's going to happen there. I got Texas at number 8. All right. Now, number 7, a team that was not ranked a year ago, the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, the reason why I don't have them higher is because I want to see a little bit more of a sample size from Curt Cignetti as the head coach there, which, I mean, if that's inappropriate, my bad, y'all. Listen, last year was obviously a magical year in Bloomington, and the year before they made the college football playoff. Y'all, he showed up to Indiana and took over a team that had won 3 games. 3. Not like had made a bowl game. Not they were like flirting with getting to a bowl game. They'd won 3 games. And Curt Cignetti, in a year's time, got him to the playoff. In 2 years' time, got him to a national championship. Y'all, what if they're just getting started? Now, again, I want to see how it goes when you lose the guys that are with you from JMU, from Aiden Fisher to Surratt. But, like, what if Indiana's just getting started right now? And what if, they are everyone's talking about who's the next Indiana. Yo, what if Indiana's the next Clemson? I go back to those years when Dabo and the Tigers were just rolling up to the college football playoff. It felt like every single year. The Big Ten's going to be brutal here going forward, but what if Curt Cignetti has now taken Indiana football to like that Tier 1 territory consistently? I don't think it's crazy to say out loud. Another reason, because they did it with 2 different quarterbacks when it comes to making the playoff and win a national championship. It was Curtis Rourke, all MAC everything a couple years ago, but had played arguably his best football at Indiana that one season. And then Fernando Mendoza comes over, hadn't thrown 20 touchdowns in a season playing college football. Throws 40 of them. Wins the Heisman Trophy at Indiana. So the common denominator is Curt Cignetti. But going back to this point of maybe they're just getting started, you don't think that the folks with deep pockets in Bloomington are more likely to give to Curt Cignetti in that program right now after a national championship? Because if I had a bunch of money to give to a college football program, my thought process would be, okay, if I give you this money, what are you going to do with it? Because everyone can give me a hype video and can say the right things, campaign correctly, and do the fundraising thing. But when I actually give you the money, are you going to do something with it? Curt Cignetti has got a resume that says, heck freaking yes, I am. Mark Cuban, put the greenbacks in my hand. Let's go win some more national championships, dude. I think Indiana might just be getting started. 7's probably too low, but I want to see what they look like with some of those experienced cats off the roster. But Indiana, they are definitely in the top 10 when it comes to team setup for the best success or best chance of success over the course of the next 3 years. Now, in the same vein, at number 6, I got Texas Tech. Not ranked a year ago. Y'all, it's not crazy to think that Texas Tech could have a top 5 roster in college football here for the next 3 years. Why? Because they got the money to go get it done. They got the eval staff to go get it done. That's the other thing that I think gets lost in the sauce with Texas Tech. Everyone is very quick to say, well, they buy their roster. Well, they got so much money and they go buy a bunch of players. Of course they win the Big 12. Yeah, of course they win the Big 12. It's another part of this. Like, they're probably going to make the college football playoff. I would like to think now, from a Texas Tech fan, every single year here going forward, with our roster having a pretty big gap between us and the rest of the conference. That's one part of this. But, y'all, the money that you have to put into your roster is only worth the people that you have behind your program allocating that money to the right players to add to your roster. Like, James Blanchard is the best GM in college football. And if he's not the best, he's absolutely top 3, top 2. Like, that money they put into their roster went to the right players. They retooled that defensive line with a lot of guys that were good players, but they weren't like household names like they were after this past season. Like, David Bailey was really good. Don't get it twisted. Really, really good. But he absolutely popped off in a bigger way when he got Texas Tech. So, looking at the next 3 years, like, Joey McGuire, one, he's a Texas guy through and through. He's not going anywhere. That's the first part of this. 2, even if he were going to go somewhere, Texas Tech's in a great spot to go land somebody else because I promise you, a lot of coaches, I have to believe, across college football would drop their current job today to go drive that rocket ship that is Texas Tech with all the backing, all the resources, and everything else around it to, you would think, go own the Big 12 every single year. So Texas Tech at number 6 when it comes to team setup for best success over the course of the next 3 years. Now, number 5, I got Notre Dame. Notre Dame was number 5 on this list for us a year ago, so no change there. I think they're better resourced than people think. There's no reason to think that they won't make the playoff every single year here going forward as well. Because the only reason they missed the playoff this past year, not the only, but the key, when the dust settled, the only reason they missed the college football playoff was because the system is all screwed up, right? Because we got teams that are ranked 20 and 24 getting the college football playoff. We've litigated that a few times. I won't relitigate it right now. But you remember, the playoff rules have since changed of if Notre Dame is even in the top 12 when the rankings settle. Doesn't matter about who's where on what ranking and what bids. Notre Dame will have a spot locked in if they make the top 12 of the college football playoff rankings. That's it. No, well, they made 10, but so-and-so had an auto bid, so therefore Notre Dame gets bumped. None of that. If they're in the top 12, they're in, and somebody else is getting bumped. Okay, so that tells me, plus what they have on their schedule, what they don't have on their schedule, Notre Dame is going to be in a spot now where what I just said is true. They make the college football playoff, I think, every single year. On top of that, I think they have a head coach who is a true activator of what that place is. Because it felt like for a while under Brian Kelly, and not to make this an alley-oop sesh on Brian Kelly, but here we go. It felt like for a while in South Bend, that was a place that had a lot of prestige, had a lot of mystique, obviously a rich history. They were always going to be good and a force to be reckoned with to some extent, but they were never going to be a team that could truly contend in the Tier 1 status. Well, I know this year was this year, but go back to last year where Notre Dame went out and made the national title game. Remember who they beat on their way to that national title game? When they beat a Georgia, when they beat a Penn State. I think that matters in the minds of potential recruits to see you go toe-to-toe and go, quite frankly, win games against some of the best in college football from a brand perspective. Notre Dame is no longer like old stuffy Notre Dame that's going to be kind of middle tier. When they play someone good, they'll lose. That's not them anymore. And so the way that Marcus Freeman has rebranded Notre Dame in that way, I think you see on the recruiting trail with them having a top 3 class this past cycle, Notre Dame's going to be more than good enough to compete with anybody over the course of the next 3 years. So that, plus I think Marcus Freeman's only getting better, and Notre Dame's going to be in the playoff every single year by nature of these rules. Notre Dame, top 5 team when it comes to being set up for success the next 3 seasons. At number 4, I got Georgia. It's a Kirby thing. It really is. College football's got a lot of change across the board when it comes to roster turnover and the portal and all these things. This is just a ranking of, do you trust the person in charge? And I think the answer with Georgia every single year until that dude goes somewhere else is emphatically yes. With him being an alum, I would be very surprised to see him go somewhere else. His name is, to my knowledge, never really brought up in those conversations, at least publicly. The dude just wins double-digit games every single year, and it's in the SEC. Like, the only times he hasn't won double-digit games, we've read this stat before, but I want to say it again in the studio, happened twice. One was his first year at Georgia when they didn't win double-digit games. The second time was during COVID where they only played 10 games, and he won 8. So Georgia every single year is going to be a 10-win team. If that's the case, Georgia every single year is going to be in the playoff. And I know everyone's getting their jokes in about, well, they made the playoff the last 2 years, JD, but what'd they do with it? Okay, have your jokes. People also had jokes before Kirby won 2 national titles of, well, Kirby can't win the big one, and he's just got a Bama problem, this, that, and the other. And then over the course of time, what happens? Kirby figures it out. I think Kirby, it's a matter of time before he figures out the expanded playoff, and when that happens, all bets are off. So Georgia, I have at number 4 on this list. Now, number 3, a team that we didn't have on this list a year ago, the Miami Hurricanes. In the same vein as Notre Dame, in the same vein as Texas Tech, there is no reason to think that Miami won't make that field of 12 every single year. And if you have pushback on that, who in the ACC is going to stand against Miami and finding their way into the college football playoff? Just purely at a roster level. Like they spot the ball on Saturdays, and that's where the actual magic happens, and anything can happen any given Saturday. I understand that. We love that. We're here for that when it comes to what college football is, why we love the sport. But like if you're just talking about Jimmy's versus Joe's, there's no school in the ACC holding a candle to Miami. And that's not even me being hyperbolic. It's just like the fact of the matter here. So barring something unforeseen here, Miami's going to have the best roster in the ACC over the course of the next few years. And then on top of that, it feels to me like Miami culturally has kind of arrived where I think Mario Cristobal wants that operation to be. Like when he first got there, they missed a bowl game, and we're still talking about, is Miami physical enough? Are they soft? They can't figure it out in November and all these things. And like that was fair to say for a while, but they were just building. They were laying the foundation. Foundation's been laid now in Coral Gables. Like this is now a Mario Cristobal team. By nature of how they add a quarterback every single offseason via the portal, they're 3 for 3 there. Can you live that way for the foreseeable future? We'll see, but I have no reason to doubt them as of right now. Miami will not just be a team that makes the playoff. The feeling for me is the trenches when they get there will continue to be a differentiating factor. I think it's a matter of if, not when, a matter of when, not if, Miami gets back to a national title game. So Miami, a top 3 team in this discussion. And number 2, I got Ohio State. Ohio State up 2 spots from this list a year ago. I mean, you got a coach that wins 90% of his games in Ryan Day and a team that every single year he's been there has had a quarterback that's top 2 in their conference in passing yards. Like just at the most important position, Ohio State continues to get it right. And a coach that really doesn't lose all that much. And the only team he was losing to was Michigan, and kind of exercised that demon a little bit a year ago with that win in Ann Arbor. So all that's to say now, I think the tricky thing with Ohio State, with how they're graded, is like you're always grading them on the Ohio State curve, like against their own expectations of winning a national championship. Would anybody be that shocked if Ohio State made the semis each of the next 3 years? I don't think so. I think Ohio State arguably now has a top 3 roster in the sport each of the next 3 years. I don't think that's a wild thing to say. So it's a Ryan Day thing. It's a quarterback thing. The resources are going to be there. Ohio State, top 2 over the course of the next 3 years when it comes to being bested up for success. Now, speaking of when, not if, my number 1 team in this list, up a spot from a year ago, is the Oregon Ducks. It really just feels like a matter of time before Dan Lanning was a national championship. And I really think it's going to be the next 3 years. I really do. And I understand now whenever you say that, people are very quick to go back and point at what Dan Lanning hasn't done throughout his career, or the failures he's had when it comes to the college football playoff blowouts against Ohio State and against Indiana, and all that's well and good. That's all fair. It all happened. We're not trying to dismiss it away. But I get the same sense around Dan Lanning right now as I had when people were saying the same things about Ryan Day and how he wasn't able to beat Michigan and how he wasn't able to win the big game. The same thing they were saying about Kirby Smart with the Bama problem, and he can't win the big game, and he just isn't a big game coach, and this, that, and the other. People said it about Jim Harbaugh for a while. Like, it's a thing people say before a head coach goes out and wins the big game and wins a national championship. And I keep saying this, but I don't know it's being said anywhere else, so we'll just keep on beating this drum. Every single year, Oregon advances further from where they were the season before. It's win the conference, win games in the playoff, make the semis, what happened last year. Now, I got embarrassed in the semis, but if that's the trend we're going off of here, is it crazy to think that Oregon can't win a national title next year, if not in the next 3 years? They're so well-resourced. They're just swimming in top 10 classes when it comes to recruiting. They also get whatever they want via the portal if they choose to go to the portal. I think Oregon is, again, a matter of if not when, they win a national championship with Dan Lanning as their head coach, and I think it's going to happen in the next 3 years. So to recap it here, my top 10 teams in college football set up for success best for the next 3 seasons. At 10, I got LSU and Lane Kiffin. I got 9, Texas A&M, Texas at 8, Indiana at 7, Texas Tech at 6, Notre Dame at 5, Georgia at 4, Miami at 3, the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 2, and the Oregon Ducks at number 1 on this list. Let me know your complaints or your adjustments there in the comment section below. Honorable mention, probably could have put USC in there with the way they're spending. Could put Bama in there. We're going to go ahead and wait and see what happens in year 3 of the DeBoer era. But, man, the plot thickens. College football always changing. Those are my teams set up for success the next 3 years. Now, on that list, obviously, we had Miami. And the head coach of the Hurricanes is going to join us right now. That is Mario Cristobal. This conversation talking about Darian Mensah and what he brings to the table, the Cam Ward comparisons. We talked about what they learned from that playoff run. Talked about even what he's learned about his own culture during his time in Coral Gables since getting there about 4 seasons ago. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Coach Cristobal. So, Coach, I want to start here, getting ready for this conversation, talking to some folks close to Miami and say, hey, is there anything that Coach Cristobal does, like outside of football? I know the season's finished. It's Miami. The weather's ridiculous. They're like, no, he's pretty much making calls. He's working on the roster. I mean, the guy is just football. So I guess like from us here in Nashville, where we got like the whole city covered in ice to you, is there anything that we could potentially do to get you outdoors enjoying the 70 whatever degrees it is right now in Coral Gables?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's book you guys coming on down, and I'll book us a charter. We'll be up on kingfish, sailfish, mahi, tuna, whatever you want, and we'll fillet those things right on the deck and have some sushi. Then we'll come on in and watch some film together. Is that fair?
Hey, that sounds like a deal to us on this end. I mean, we're all the way here for that. I mean, just being down in Miami during the month of January, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, I get why people show up here and commit within a matter of a couple of days. Like this makes a lot of sense. Since this season has finished, what do you feel like you've learned about your program since when you got there to where you are right now?
Well, probably the importance of people. Right? It's all about the right people. And as much as it is getting the right people in, you also have to get the wrong fits. That's not wrong people. I don't judge people, but fits are important to assess and to get the wrong fits out of the building because everybody has an impact on everybody. And I think that allows you to get better and better as the season goes on and as the years go on. And that's key to everything because now in football, it is, I mean, you can't stumble too much, right? But you have to peak at a certain time of year to give yourself the best chance to go not only win the conference, but win in the playoffs and eventually win a national title. So, so much to unpack, so much learned. But I feel like here, like we learn all the time. And I like to say I like to learn as much. I learn as much from players as I feel that I teach players and that we teach players. So all in all, it's a very driven, lifelong learner approach to football.
And you spoke to that peaking at the right time. It felt like, especially in the month of November going into the playoff, like y'all are catching your stride. We're firing all cylinders. It felt like Miami was playing their best ball when they needed to play their best football. What do you attribute that to with that switch seemingly flipped after that SMU game for you guys?
Yeah, that meeting that we had, it highlighted everything. I mean, the first thing was acknowledging, man, we have awesome people. We work really, really hard. But, man, we're losing games in the margins. We're not getting the result we want. And since the whole world is coming down on our players right now, we're going to be our players' biggest fans, their biggest advocates, their best teachers. We're going to bring relentless energy. And we're just going to go one day at a time with insane amount of energy and teaching and betterment. And we're going to just take that approach and not worry about anything else. And that led to us playing our best football, man. We secured the football better. We executed better. We became more physical, more violent. And at the end of the day, on Saturdays, we were able to cut it loose, man. And when you cut it loose and have fun, it's a different animal. And I felt that that's the kind of football we were playing down the stretch.
I know a lot of guys are going to look at what the U is losing. Okay, Ruben Bain's gone to the league. Okay, we're talking about Carson Beck, but I'm looking at the guys that are on this roster from last year's run, and I'm like, hey, Malachi Tony's still there. Like Bryce Fitzgerald, he's still there. Mark Fletcher's still there. So when you talk about that run that you just had, how much do you think that resonates with some of those guys that are still in that building in terms of like taking that run, not being satisfied, and building upon that?
Oh, they're chomping at the bit, and they know. Like, look, a lot of the crew that just left, they were 5-7 a few years ago. So they went through that and they were convicted and determined to never let that ever happen. And they wanted to elevate Miami's profile and the standards. And a lot of these guys were under their tutelage, their mentorship, and they know it's their time. Like they're good and they're getting better and better. And those bodies are changing. The mentality certainly has changed. And like you mentioned, Malachi Tony coming back, Mark Fletcher coming back, Ahmad Moten coming back, Mo Toure, Chase Smith, Zach Poyser, Bryce Fitzgerald. All the corners come back. OJ, Ethan, X comes back. Damari comes back. And all that means is that our offseason is going to be the biggest ass-kicking session you've ever seen in your life. To make sure complacency is nowhere to be found and that we stay humble, that we stay hungry, that we stay driven, and that we go get better, man. That's all we're focused on right now. Shutting our mouths, keeping our heads down, and just working and getting better.
You mentioned all those names. Was there anybody that you saw specifically kind of step up into more of a leadership role during that playoff run or in the month of November where it's like, hey, this guy, when we started the year, maybe a little bit more to himself, a little more reserved, but when it came time to really cut it loose, like you mentioned, he became one of our more vocal guys or one of our more core leaders?
No doubt. Mark Fletcher on the offensive side, Mo Toure on the defensive side. Those guys have seen a lot of football, man. And you know what they are? They're big physical freaks, and they'll hit you. And they'll throw their bodies around with reckless abandon. They'll do whatever it takes for the team to win. And they're also going to confront demand from their teammates like, hey, brother, we do it this way, a certain way, and we're not going to compromise that for anybody or anything. And those voices, that presence is really, really impactful.
And I know, like, along that playoff run, everyone's talking about the U is this, the U is this, the U is back. Like, being in Miami, it felt to us like the whole back thing I know is overdone, but it felt like there was an activation of sorts for that city, for that fan base, for just the brand itself. Is that something that you felt during that month of November and during that playoff run where it felt like, okay, the back is overdone thing, but activated in terms of everyone's engaged, everyone is seeing now the vision come to life that you, I think, had in place when you got to Coral Gables again to be the head coach there? Did it feel like that was true in your opinion?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, the U is back. I cringe at that all the time. It just like drives me bananas. So I've been away for 20 years and I've watched it from afar, 3 games in, then it doesn't go as planned. And like and I like to think in terms of Miami, or like I like to say because back when I played it was is here. And we have activated the most rabid, insane fan base you can imagine, and also one that really galvanizes. And that's what kind of attracted me to Miami as a player when I watched them just bring this entire community together. And I think it really hit hard when we came out of the tunnel at the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. And that place was just going bananas and was filled up with orange and green all over the place. That was like, okay, this is now different. Like it's on. It's been, like you mentioned, it's been activated. And I think when you activate this place with the resources that we have, and you got to spend more time in Coral Gables so you can see how awesome, how different this setting is from everything else out there. It's just it's a lethal combination, and one that we're excited to just generate more enthusiasm and momentum behind.
Yeah, Coach, like I said, in Nashville, with it being a balmy like 40 degrees today, we're always looking for reasons to get out to South Florida. So we'll definitely we'll have to
why don't you call Cam Ward? Cam Ward probably has his own private jet by now. Just get on his private jet and come on down, man.
Yeah, we'll get in touch with them and say, hey, Cam, we'll do a little thing. Me, you, our producer Caden Smith, jump on the bird, and we'll be there in a couple hours. But you mentioned Cam Ward. I feel like Darian Mensah, the portal acquisition that y'all had from Duke at the quarterback position, whenever people watch him or watch the highlights, they're very quick to compare him to Cam Ward. Do you see that in his game? Is that something that you would say is a fair comparison to make?
I think everybody's so different, but you do see, you try to pick similarities to, I don't know, make things as analogous as you can to bring it to life in conversation. And I think there's a lot of, you see some of that game in him, and he's his own unique player. Also, he man, so accurate. I mean, so mobile. I mean, on the run, on script, off script, down the field, intermediate, short, quick game, screen game, making things happen with his feet, and incredible personality. That part really hit fast. And then watch him around our players and watching him help develop the young quarterback room, because we have some awesome young QBs. And then watching him surrounded by some of the pieces that he has now, there's some special things brewing there. And they all know we got to work at it because, again, the passing game is timing, spacing, precision. But, man, it's exciting because he brings a lot to the table, and we really think that sky's the limit for Darren Minson.
And it feels like whenever you get a portal quarterback, whether it be a Cam, whether it be a Carson, now going to be a Darian. I mean, he mentioned us here at On 3 when he was, talking about his reason to pick Miami. He's like, I want to go be a first-round pick, and Miami seems to elevate quarterbacks. What is it that y'all do specifically that you feel like helps bring the best out of these quarterbacks to when they get to the 305, they play their best football seemingly?
Yeah, we really have high-level teachers, and coaching it's a vocation, man. Like, I believe in coaching. Most of us coach here. I mean, we're all kind of nobodies. I mean, except Jason Taylor. He's like, superstar and gold jacket guy. But aside from that, I mean, and he's you would think that here's a guy that has nothing to prove, but comes in every day with everything to prove in his habits and actions. And our entire building, Coach Mirabal, Coach Dawson, Coach Heatherman. I mean, all these guys are just really, really high-level teachers that just immerse themselves in and get lost in teaching technique, fundamental scheme, increasing football IQ, being involved in the lives of these players. And then we do surround them with like-minded individuals that are uber talented. And that this roster, it's been a roster overhaul. So we look a lot different than what Miami looked like when we got here. And I think all those things come into play when we just crank in that practice regimen, which I think you'd love the more you spend time around here. It's very well documented. We practice different from a pace, intensity, physicality standpoint, and we want to get better at it, but we orchestrate really, really thought out, well-planned, high-level practices, and those things add up when you're going good on good all the time. So I think those things help, but it all starts with the player. The player has to make a decision that he's willing to buy into this type of a regimen because it's not comfortable. It's super demanding, but the payoff is fantastic. And you know what? Everyone here understands the more you win as a program, the better off, and the more everybody, eats. Like, everyone likes to say, everyone gets to benefit from that.
Everyone gets fed. Everyone gets fed. I mean, you mentioned the good on good part of this. How do you balance that with what the demand is of a season to go play, 15, 16 games at the end of this thing? Do you have to temper that, or is it a depth thing? How do you practice hard as you want to practice and have that cauliflower ear kind of edge, but then still keep your guys as fresh as you need to be to go win on Saturdays?
Yeah, that's where I'm always trying to grow, and I have grown some because, like, sports science back when I played here was if a guy, was raising up his hand because he had a tough time, in conditioning, like Jimmy Johnson would say, hey, the asthma field's over there in the parking lot. Get your ass out of here, right? You can't. That doesn't exist anymore. Now it's, it's different, but in a good way. And I think our sports science department, strength and conditioning, as well as just trusting our eyes, you got to realize that I think it was 23 or 24 weeks straight that we were playing football and practicing football. You have to make modifications as the year goes on, but we don't feel that you ever compromise good on good. We feel you have to always do that just because scheme is changing. The caliber of look that you're getting from the scouts really deteriorates as the year goes on. Your guys have to see that speed, and they have to see different things, not necessarily exactly what they're watching on film from the opponent we're about to play. Because things are going to be different, and they got to see it in real time, fast motion, as our guys say. So I think the benefit of good on good, and I'll say it to the grave, I think it's the most important thing we do in practice.
And I'm sure having a portal class that y'all have can't hurt things when everyone's talking about Darian Mensah, but you add a Damon Wilson, you add a Cooper Barkate. What was the philosophy for you with putting this portal class together? Was it roster overhaul? Was it, hey, we learned something from last year to this year that we want to lean more into with our roster when it comes to the ACC or the playoff? What was the philosophy for you guys with this portal class?
Real simple. We don't complicate it all, man. We go get better. And we feel like we've stacked really good high school classes. So every year it's a little bit less from the portal. And we're getting to a point where, again, it's a dozen guys this year. But man, whether they're in the portal or on the moon, if they're a really good player that can make this place better, we're going to launch and we're going to go get them. I mean, there's too many ways to enhance your team and your program now to not take full advantage of them. And to think that you have to limit yourself to a certain like exact process as it relate where you're getting them from, I think that's a little bit short-sighted. There's too much opportunity out there to upgrade your roster every year.
And you mentioned the high school class as well, like just locked up a top 10 class over the course of this past cycle. That paired with the portal class, everyone talks about the splashy gets of what I just mentioned with Mensa and those high-profile guys, but I feel like what gets lost with your roster is you guys crush it when it comes to evals. Like nobody's talking about C.J. Daniels before the year in terms of the role he had, or Keontae Scott in the season that he had. What do y'all do during the eval process that you believe gives you the advantage to go find those guys that end up balling for y'all during the fall?
We just watch a lot of tape, man. No highlight tapes to be watched. That's why my eyes look like they look right now. We just burn our eyes on tape, and then we trust our evaluations and have conviction. And we collaborate, right? We have a lot of differences in opinions, and that's good. We'd rather have a think tank than to have groupthink. We want the opinions out there, but we want to put it on paper, write it up the right way, with the criteria, not like, hey, I think this guy's a dude, he can play. Well, BS. Like, let's talk about his hips. Let's talk about his mobility, his redirect ability, his willingness to tackle, his physicality. So the process is very thorough. But again, high school recruiting, right, has been better for us every year. We've had, I believe, 3 or 4 successive years with a freshman All-American. It might be the most in the country, might not, but it's up there somewhere. And a lot of it's because of the evaluation, not only of the ability, but of the character of the player we're getting.
You mentioned the freshman All-American. I mean, Malachi Toney, when it was all said and done, led college football in receptions as a teenager, which is ridiculous. What makes him different in your mind?
Man, everything. I mean, everything about him is different. I mean, what other wide receiver, if you come in at 5:30 in the morning, you see him stop by the offensive line coach's room, he's sitting there with him, like talking protections and blocking. I haven't seen a guy like him. He's unique in so many ways. He bounces around with great energy, like he's never had a bad day. I mean, he's relentless in his approach to absolutely everything he does. His care factor for his teammates and for winning and for the University of Miami is off the charts, man. He's going to be leaned upon more this year to take on a leadership role as a young guy, as a sophomore.
Well, Coach, we appreciate all your time. Last question for you here. Obviously, the national championship appearance, obviously winning the state the last years. Like there's so much momentum behind Miami right now, especially in the state of Florida with how you guys have trended the last couple of seasons. Do you feel that when you jump on the call and talk to a high school prospect or to a portal kid that's from the state? Do you feel that shift in the state to where Miami is relative to maybe the rest of the Sunshine State as it stands right now?
Without question, in recruiting, you always want to win your state. And, we provide just very tangible proof of the direction of our program and what we're doing. And we don't get a negative recruiting, but people always negative recruit us, and that's fine. Like, no one should ever take that personally. Let's just let it play out. And people have a lot of data. They have like a sample size to compare how our program is doing, and versus the rest of our competitors in the state, and the direction of our program as well. And I think we feel that. I think players and parents realize that not only is our program, that we're not satisfied. Yeah, we were a participant in the national championship. We didn't win it. Okay. And we look at that like dead on and say, okay, let's go get better so that we can put ourselves in a situation to win that game as well and win a conference and get better as a program. And I think that hunger is felt. I don't think over here it's a sales pitch. Here it's a way of life and a vocation. I mean, at the end of the day, unless I'm crazy, I think I'm the only head coach in Florida in terms of the programs who actually played at the school he coaches at. So at Miami, it just means it's very different. It's a whole different level of meaning. It's a whole different level of purpose and intent. And, live and die a hurricane, man. That means I'll do anything and everything possible to make sure our players and our program continues to have both success on and off the field.
Well, Coach, we're excited to get back out there and spend some time with y'all and be in just warmer weather, maybe shed the sleeves a little bit, and hopefully, if we're lucky, get a suntan. But again, appreciate all your time with all you got going, and looking forward to getting out there and seeing y'all again real soon.
Don't bring that cold weather down here, man. A couple guys came from the Midwest and brought this little cold front with them. Look, we like in the wintertime, we like it 70 so that we could train outside without any issues. So just please make sure, especially if you come with Cam, that don't bring that junk down here.
Hey, you have our word. You have our word. Appreciate it, Coach.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, if you think for a second now Cato and I aren't looking at flights to Fort Lauderdale after that invitation from Mario Cristobal, listen, the weather in Nashville, it's not as bad as it was a couple of weeks ago, but, dog, 70 and sunny with maybe one cloud in the sky. We were in Miami for that national title game, and what I said at the top of the interview is how I feel right now. Like, okay, I get why people come here. I get why people go out to South Florida, even if they're not playing ball during these parts of the year. Neither here nor there. So keep a pulse on that one. If we have news for places we're going to get during the offseason, during the spring, we will announce those on here as well as the socials, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. But don't you think for a second we're just giving that invitation lip service, saying, oh, yeah, maybe we'll get out to Miami. No, we're keeping a pulse on it, if nothing else, all right? Speaking of keeping a pulse, man, I know a lot of y'all kept a pulse on the transfer portal over the course of the last few months. A lot of moving and shaking, especially at the quarterback position now. We did this exercise before the portal opened up. I want to do it again as the dust has settled. Transfer portal quarterback superlatives as it pertains to where these guys ended up at. All right, before we get to those, make sure you're subscribed. If you're a college football sicko, welcome home. College football, nothing but college football year-round. If you liked this video, the best way to let us know, or like this show rather, is by subscribing to the channel. It's kind of just a little thumbs up, a little vote of confidence. Hey, we see you. We're dialed in, JD. Thank you. Cato, thank you. Best way to let us know that by doing that proverbial salute is by subscribing to the channel. So thank you in advance for that and for rocking with us, making this show what it is. So first superlative up. Staying in the spirit of the 305 vibes we got going now from that Cristobal interview that's already on the channel. Biggest national title impact. That would be Darian Mensah. Now, y'all, it's not hard to see this. You made a national title game a year ago with a quarterback who was good. A lot of talent, good ability, had his fair amount of scars from what he had done at Georgia, cool tattoos. Darian Mensah into the fold now brings an elevated skill set. He's closer to what Cam Ward was when you had that magical run where you're scoring 40 a game and saying, hey, if we just had a defense that could stop a nosebleed, we might be in good shape here to go win a national championship. Now, was Darian Mensah going to be Cam Ward? I don't know. I have no idea. But when it comes to Miami and their chances to go win a national title in 2026, I think Darian Mensah is the guy you look at and say, okay, it's absolutely possible now. We can make a national title with Carson Beck. We can win one with Darian Mensah, would be my thought process if I was a Hurricane fan. Also, look at it this way. Just the kind of games you can play if you're Miami now. Like before, think about just the conversation during the college football playoff with the U. Hey, they got to shorten the game, make it ugly, make it gross, run the football. That's the way Miami could win this game. That's the way Miami could beat Ohio State. It's the way Miami could beat Texas A&M. If Darian Mensah's playing quarterback for you in those games, you're saying, okay, now, you got to score with Miami. There's some good defenses now in Ohio State, good pass rush in A&M, but you got to go score with the Hurricanes with Darian Mensah throwing the pill around the yard. That's a real conversation you have now. And if the U is going to pick up where they left off last year everywhere else around Darian Mensah, Miami could absolutely be in Las Vegas for the national title game. Make no mistake about that. Now, this is one of my favorite superlatives we have on this list. Most likely to ruin your Saturday if you got to play against him, it's Auburn's Byron Brown. I've said this before. I don't know what Auburn's going to be in 2026. I've been optimistic about Auburn the last couple of years. I said I think Jackson Arnold's going to be better for you than Peyton Thorne. Before that, I was saying, hey, Peyton Thorne, his second year in the system, here we go now. Got burned. So when I've gotten burned now, I'm not putting my hand on the stove again and saying, oh, yeah, this is fun, third time's the charm. I'm not doing that with you. But what I will say is Byron Brown and that wide choice offense under Alex Golesh is going to suck to defend against, going to suck to game plan against. Because what the wide choice does is it forces your defense to have a light box. Less defenders to stop the run because we put our receivers all the way across the field. We got to spread out our secondary. Less defenders to honor the run game. Now, when that happens, who do you have in the backfield? A quarterback who's 6'3", 230 and can hurdle you, okay? So that's going to suck to defend in the run game. Then also in the passing game, if you go watch our quarterback breakdown, dude's got a freaking hose for an arm. Can spray that thing all over the field. Like, they're not lining up those receivers all the way out wide just for their health. They got a quarterback that can legitimately, based on his arm strength, get the ball out there. So is Auburn going to be a team that goes out and wins 10 games and wins the SEC? It would probably surprise me a little bit if that was the case. It's year one on the Plains. It's also the freaking SEC. Give me a break. But if you got to play Auburn, it's not what it was last year, where you see them on the schedule and say, oh, okay, they'll be frisky, but we're not too worried about them. No, you should be worried about them because this offense and this quarterback will hunt this mismatch they want to find in the passing game or in the run game, and I think they feel pretty confident about exposing it. Like listening to Alex Golesh right now, based on different media sessions he's had, whether it be with the Auburn media or at the Senior Bowl, he mentions things he's unsure about, but the offense isn't really one of them. Like he feels pretty confident the offense is going to score some points by nature of who he brought over with Byron Brown running that thing. So is Auburn going to, again, go make the playoff in 2026? I don't feel ready to say that right now, but I promise you, Auburn, with them being on the schedule for you October, November, and that quarterback could very easily ruin your Saturday. That's a superlative. I feel confident, given Byron Brown, the USF transfer, as it stands right now. Now, the most sure thing in this transfer portal cycle at the quarterback position, to me, is Brennan Sorsby. Like, just based on the logic of this whole thing. Brennan Sorsby coming over from Cincinnati a season ago, he was all Big 12 for the Bearcats. All Big 12 quarterback. He's staying in the same conference that he was all conference in a year ago, but he's now surrounded by, in my estimation, more talent and, no knock on Cincinnati, but I think a better play caller in Mac Leftwich is how I feel about this thing. Y'all, honestly, too, with Brennan Sorsby, I might give him a little bit of a Heisman sprinkle, too. Like, I'm that excited to see what he is. We'll do a BetMGM QB breakdown on him in the future, but just his skill set, everything about the guy is athletic and explosive, but at the same time, like, very, very smooth. A whip for an arm, elite runner with the ball in his hands. Going to be a lot of fun to watch him do what he does in that offense this year, but again, there's not a lot of guessing with Brennan Sorsby. Like, some of these guys were saying, well, how are they going to do when they get to the conference they're in now? Like, Byron Brown's a great example. Transferring from USF to Auburn, different conference, different level of competition. That's not the case for Brennan Sorsby. I think him, plus the fact that he's got another year starting of experience at this level, I think it's going to be a lot of good things for Texas Tech this year. The most sure thing in this class at the quarterback position, Brennan Sorsby, when it comes to this transfer portal cycle. The biggest wild card for me in this transfer portal class at the quarterback position, LSU's Sam Leavitt. JD, I thought you were high on Sam Leavitt. Did you like the Tigers? What's going on? I thought we had a good thing going here. Hang on a second. Let's talk about this. The reason why the wild card label is attached to Sam Leavitt is because there is a 2-game delta between riots and parades in Baton Rouge. Now, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but roll with me here. If LSU goes out and wins 8 games this year under Lane Kiffin in year one, with that portal class, with that quarterback, it's not going to be chill. It's not going to be, oh, okay, well, it was year one. It's going to be, no, what the heck's going on? Lane Kiffin, we're giving you all you need to go win at a high level. Why are we not doing it? And the first player you look at for LSU, if they don't achieve what they're supposed to achieve this year, is who's playing quarterback for you. So that paired with the whole, like, I wish I was getting a fully healthy Sam Leavitt during spring ball. We'll see what happens during fall camp, is cause for, like, the 8-win world to be a possibility. But on the positive side, man, if LSU and Sam Leavitt go do what they're capable of doing with all this talent, with this system, with who Sam Leavitt was a couple of years ago for Arizona State when they made the playoff and gave Texas everything they wanted and then some in that Peach Bowl. All right, now, if LSU's all the way back, think about the ripple effect that would send across college football. I mean, first, when it comes to acquiring talent, you now got to deal with LSU with proof of concept Lane Kiffin, which sucks for everyone else across the SEC. But even just the SEC in general, too, if you add another school into that Tier 1 category when it comes to competing for a conference championship, like, y'all, A&M won 11 games last year and missed the conference title game. I'm not doing this whole SEC versus everyone else discussion right now, but I am just saying if Sam Leavitt plays to his potential and activates LSU back to where they expect to be, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how Lane Kiffin carries himself and how LSU operates, because them in the college football playoff with the talent they're going to have on that roster with a Sam Leavitt playing at a high level, it's going to be a very tough out, to say the least. So wild card on both sides of this thing, partly because of expectations and partly because of what we're seeing Sam Leavitt to be when it comes to his health. But it's a pretty exciting plot, whatever side of the coin you're on here, whether you're hate watching or hope watching LSU this year. It's going to be exciting. So Sam Leavitt, biggest wild card in that regard. Now, most mature for this transfer portal cycle, Dylan Raiola to Oregon. Remember what we said when Dylan Raiola hit the transfer portal? I sat in front of you at a different desk in the other studio here at On3 HQ, but I said, listen, I don't think it's going to happen, but Dylan Raiola should go somewhere to sit a year like Dante Moore did. Fast forward the tape, had no idea this would happen. Otherwise, I would have said it more with my chest. But Dylan Raiola transferring to Oregon, understanding that Dante Moore could come back, eventually does come back, I love everything about this for Dylan Raiola. Reason why it's mature is because Dylan Raiola didn't just start a couple of games at Nebraska. He went into 2 different seasons as Nebraska's starting quarterback. Started a full year for them as a true freshman. Was having a pretty decent year when he got hurt. The whole injury is one side of this, but I just have to think the amount of humble pie you have to be able to stomach if you're Dylan Raiola. To transfer somewhere, understanding you're not going to be the guy from day one. Just a lot of self-awareness there. Because I think a lot of us that watched Dylan Raiola over the course of the last 2 seasons were saying, hey, he's clearly talented. If you don't think Dylan Raiola's got arm talent, we're not watching the same thing. That's first of all. But you watch him and you're like, man, just feels like he would benefit from having some more stability around him and from learning from somebody else. Because at Nebraska, by nature of the poem he put out, saying, I'm here to take Nebraska back to relevance, essentially, is what that poem said. That's a lot of pressure on a guy. And that was kind of how it was playing out in front of him, was Dylan Raiola was having to do a lot himself because of what different position groups around him were maybe lacking, most notably the offensive line. For Dylan Raiola to go sit a year at Oregon, to be able to understand that he's not ready yet to get to where he wants to get to, that was a massively mature move by the guy. So I loved that for him, and honestly made me root for Dylan Raiola too, with what he's going to be at Oregon when his time eventually arrives in Eugene. Last one here for transfer portal quarterback superlatives, Drew Mestermaker at Oklahoma State. Biggest growth spurt. Now, if you watched Oklahoma State last year, I'm sorry. Sorry that had to happen to you. It's not fair. It's not right. It shouldn't happen to anybody, but it happened. 1-11 last year. You add into the equation a quarterback who led college football in passing yards at UNT, and oh, by the way, brings with him 16 other transfers and his head coach in Eric Morris. I don't know if Oklahoma State's going to win the Big 12, but I do know that conference is extremely gettable outside of Texas Tech. And I do know now with that offense last year at UNT, they're going to throw the ball around the yard. They're going to make you play at their pace. So we'll see how much the growth spurt actually equates to when it comes to what they accomplish. Do they go and play for a conference title in year one? I don't know. But in terms of improvement now, that should be there. Oklahoma State should at least have a 5 to 6 win improvement and be competing for a bowl game in year one under Eric Morris and with a new quarterback at the sticks, who again led college football in passing as a young buck last year. So a lot to unpack there, a lot of different superlatives. Let me know yours, though. There's a couple of big names we didn't hit on, DJ Lagway being one of them. But let me know your feedback on those portal quarterback superlatives as it stands right now in the college football calendar. All right. Now, this is something we've been doing across the board here these past couple off seasons. We already talked about the state of Florida and where that stands currently. I want to go out to the Lone Star State and unpack the current state of Texas and some of the programs within that state. I want to unpack the big 3 as it stands right now. You could talk Baylor. You could talk TCU. No issues with doing that. But I want to talk about Texas, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech, because those are the big 3 right now in the state. Let's start with Texas. Texas is in a spot now where it feels like they are all in to break through and not just make the playoff again. They've done that. They want to go all in and compete for a national championship in 2026. And the time feels like it's now for Texas for a couple of reasons. The first of which being, you should on paper have what you need in this roster. Like, we'll see what happens in the fall, what your roster is right now and what your roster is when you actually start playing games, two different things. But on paper, it feels like the effort is there to have everything you need to be in a spot to go compete for what you want to compete for. Arch Manning's back, that's the obvious thing. But you go out and you add a few offensive linemen because it wasn't good enough last year. You add a couple of running backs that were both like 5 yards a carry guys, their respective P4 destinations. Like, you made moves to go compete for a national championship. Oh, by the way, you added Cam Coleman, probably the biggest non-quarterback add of this entire portal cycle. The roster is there to go get it done. So you're very, very obviously resource-wise and personnel-wise all in to go get it done. The other part of this, though, that I think is maybe as important as anything else, optics-wise for Texas, it kind of feels like it has to be the year in some respects. Now, Texas is not a window program, as they call it, where this is the year where they got to do it, and if they don't do it this year, it'll never happen. I'm not saying that, but I am saying relative to the rest of the state, if you want to be the team in the state, not just by nature of the brand, but like by nature of the on-field product, if you don't make the playoff this season, I have a hard time believing that Texas Tech and or Texas A&M is going to just fall back into the abyss. So the concern for you if you're Texas is if you don't make the playoff this year for the second year in a row, you risk optically falling back into the rest of the pack in the rest of the state of Texas, all right? Which to me makes it feel a little bit uneasy. So you have it all there to go break through and go do that, but if you don't do it this year, you're like, did we lose ground on the rest of the state? And my gut would be yes. But make no mistake about it now, if Texas does break through and they go win a national title, or they just go win the SEC in general, the momentum behind a place like that is very different. Like, there's some places where the thought process is, hey, we gotta do some things on the recruiting trail, whether it be portal or high school level, got to go have a good season, and then maybe we start to generate some belief, people start to see the vision, good things happen for us, and it's easy to buy into. That's like one train of thought. At Texas, if you go win 10 games, much like they did a couple of years ago where they made the college football playoff, made the semifinals, it was like, okay, Texas is a destination now. Where do I sign if I'm a high school prospect, if I'm a portal guy? Because people want to be at Texas, all right? Understand that. So this is a year where it feels like a lot hinges on it, and if they go break through and do what they expect to do now, Texas may, in fact, be a team that is in the family of running college football when it comes to logos and brands in this sport. Texas A&M, we touched on earlier in the show, but I want to go back to them. For the longest time, we were always talking about Texas A&M like they were like sick somehow. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, Texas A&M got all this potential, got all this roster talent, they got all these resources, but just poor Texas A&M, they don't have the right coach, they don't have the right culture. Like, there was always something that we spoke to about Texas A&M that was holding them back. We're not doing that anymore with Texas A&M. Texas A&M has recovered. Now the question is Saturday stuff. Are they going to go win the games they're supposed to win and match up with teams they need to match up against to go win the games they want to win and compete for things they want to compete for? Like last year, I think, proved that you hired the right guy in Mike Elko. You hired the right guy. You had several wins that I would qualify as like culture wins. Like South Carolina, as much as that first half bothers you, you don't climb back into that game and win that game if you don't have a true culture about yourself. That wasn't there the last couple of years. That wasn't there under Jimbo, under Kevin Sumlin. It wasn't there. Not to knock those guys, just kind of the fact of the matter. It is now there with Mike Elko. And so the question becomes now, if you're A&M, can you do it when everyone sees you coming? Because I think a year ago, we experienced this firsthand. If you said something positive about A&M, it was, poor you, you're falling for the trap again of Texas 8-4. You get a little pat on the head, get a little pity, smile, whatever it was. But no one's saying that about A&M this year. I think A&M is going to be a much more hotter pick for the college football playoff. Now, we were on the front end of that. We'll pat ourselves on the back. But like that's going to be something that happens this year. A&M's not going to be a surprise if they go win double-digit games and make the playoff for the second year in a row. With Marcel Reed back, with Mario Craver back, all those things. So A&M, can you do it when everyone has A&M in their focus of being a real team they got to see on Saturdays? Curious to see. But if they can, same deal we said with Texas is Those resources are not going to be an issue for A&M. I think that brand power is in that same vein of not going to be a problem for them in that state. All bets are off for Texas A&M because of the momentum they could have behind Mike Elko in year 3. All right. Now, Texas Tech is weird to evaluate in this discussion of where do they stand in the state because they don't play Texas or Texas A&M. You can talk about Texas and Texas A&M side by side because Texas and Texas A&M, by the grace of God now and common sense, play each other every year. That's how it's supposed to be. But Texas Tech, we hope they will eventually schedule one of these teams in non-conference. That'd be fun for all of us. But they're playing in the Big 12 where they're going to play Baylor and play TCU and probably beat the brakes off both those schools here for the foreseeable future by nature of what Texas Tech has on their roster and what those schools have on their roster. So it's weird to evaluate. But I just want to say this with Texas Tech. People better start taking them seriously as a Tier 1 team in this sport. Because what I said earlier in our ranking segment of teams set up for success over the course of the next 3 years in college football, Texas Tech may have the best roster in this state in 3 years' time. Why? Because they can afford it. Because they got a GM in James Blanchard who can eval it. You got a head coach in Joey McGuire who I think is attractive to play for by nature of how he operates, now by nature of them making the playoff last year. There's no more like good for you treatment with Texas Tech is what I want to make sure we say. So where do they stack up with Texas and Texas A&M? It's hard to say because they're not going to see each other on the field in the regular season. But I just want us to get aligned on this idea that we shouldn't treat Texas Tech differently than those schools or give them a different like treatment just because they don't play in the SEC. Texas Tech, I'll say this, they would hold serve in the SEC. Probably more than hold serve in the SEC. Make no mistake about that. So the challenge for A&M, or for Texas Tech rather, going forward is can they just be in college football playoff shape when they get to the college football playoff? Because what I said a second ago of you can't eval them against Texas and Texas A&M, well, what happens when they see them in the college football playoff? Are you in good enough shape competitively to compete with those teams? Okay, because quite frankly now Texas Tech, they're going to get like maybe a test a year with BYU, maybe ASU is frisky every night, maybe Utah, but like for the most part, Texas Tech is going to be playing against themselves for a lot of the season. And that's going to be tricky. So it's a battle in the state right now between those three. Again, I think Texas is all in on this being their year. If they do that, here we go. Now we're cooking with gas if we're the Longhorns, but it is a battle in that state. And if you become the team in that state, and you can win the majority stake when it comes to recruiting in that state, you got everything you need to go compete for some pretty exciting prizes in the postseason. So that's the state of Texas as it stands right now. But let's take a look at what the state is of the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. More specifically, when you look at the 2026 schedule for both Michigan and for Ohio State and look at what that final game of the regular season could be for both these teams, y'all, it has all the makings to be not just the game, but the playoff game for either side of this equation. All right? Like, just look at both schedules for a second. Michigan, before they play Ohio State, they will have played Oklahoma, Iowa, Penn State, Indiana, and at Oregon. It's not going to be fun. Not a lot of layups on that schedule. For Ohio State, at Texas, Illinois, at Iowa, at Indiana, at USC. They also play Oregon. I don't think either side of this rivalry feels like overwhelmingly confident they're going to stroll into that final game of the regular season in Columbus, Ohio, and have a whole lot less than 2 losses. Now, it could happen, but I think for the most part now, both teams should be preparing for that final game of the regular season to be a playoff game. Winner is in. Loser, love you. Actually, no, don't love you. Hate your guts. Go ahead and watch the college football playoff on the couch. And that's going to be awesome for reasons we'll talk about here in a second. But with that being the schedule now, you look across the board, and it's a different test than what I think either side has seen over the course of the last couple of years. And my first thought there is, okay, Bryce Underwood, Julian saying, it's got to be a leap year for us here, boys. I know what the calendar says about a leap year, but it's got to be a leap year for both sides of this equation for 2026 for us to make the college football playoff. Why? Because you have a lot more games now where you probably still feel good about having the edge roster talent-wise, but there's going to be a lot of games now where the quarterback has got to make the difference because the roster talent gap is a lot closer than it was in previous years. So like for Bryce Underwood now, we got to tap into, if we're Michigan, what makes Bryce Bryce. which sounds cliche, but I've said this many times. I felt like I watched Michigan football last year, and I was watching Bryce Underwood being held hostage to what Michigan football was deciding they were committing to be. Like, we weren't having a whole lot of design quarterback run game stuff. We weren't really able to unlock the Bryce Underwood arm talent. Now, Bryce Underwood's got his own share of growth to make up for himself. Don't misunderstand me. But if we're going to maximize what Bryce Underwood's supposed to be at quarterback, we have to call the offense to his skill set, which I think Jason Beck, the new OC out there, is going to make it a priority to do. It's what he's done throughout the course of his career. But like everything that you want to be if you're Michigan, in those big games I mentioned you have on your schedule, and the biggest game on your schedule in Ohio State, it flows from Bryce Underwood being the Bryce Underwood he was advertised to be when you flipped him away from LSU and is the alleged double-digit $1 million recruit. All right? Now, for Ohio State and Julian Sayin, there's not a lot to be desired when it comes to the numbers because, I mean, the ball barely touched the ground in Columbus last year with this dude playing quarterback. Like, it was a routes on air session out there with how often he was completing the football, like 77% of his passes. The thing with Julian Sayin, the growth point for me, is it is an exposure therapy for him for the big game moments. Like Alex Honnold, the free soloer that made everyone's palms sweaty watching him climb that building on Netflix Live, you know what I'm talking about? He talks about his own brain not being scared of heights because he climbed so many tall buildings with no ropes. Like Julian Sayin, his brain has got to calibrate to the big game moment because he's going to get to play a lot more big games. So his comfortability in those spots, not that he was ever like truly horrendous in those spots a year ago for Ohio State, but he's got to make the difference for those spots in Ohio State here in 2026, especially this game. Again, wasn't bad in the Big Ten title game, wasn't the difference. Wasn't bad against Miami, had a couple of picks. One of those picks wasn't really on him, neither here nor there. Wasn't the difference. He's going to have to be the difference for you to get to where you want to go in 2026, and that obviously starts with the Michigan game. Now, the head coach angle, too, I think is really interesting optically in this spot. For Ryan Day, you just slayed the dragon. Personally, right? Like you won the national title a couple years ago. It's all well and good. We all understand if you don't beat Michigan, you got problems. He did that last year. That's great. Think about the narrative around Ohio State and Ryan Day. If he loses to a first-year coach at Michigan and Kyle Whittingham, what does that mean when you chart the course for the next couple of years in that rivalry? Doesn't feel very good, does it? Feels kind of like, well, we got a coach who wins 90% of his games, but that one game he loses is the one you can't lose. I'm just saying vibes would be bad. At the very least, vibes would not be good in the slightest. Now, if you win that game, if you're Ryan Day, you're like, okay, this thing goes through us just in case you needed any reminding. We beat Sharon Moore a year ago, and we beat your new head coach this year. Like, what's up now? That's how you would feel, right, if you're an Ohio State fan. Now, for Kyle Whittingham, the stakes feel, if I can say this, lower, which the Michigan-Ohio State game means the world to both sides of this, whether the playoff exists or not, and we love college football for that, but like Kyle Whittingham's got a 20-year resume to know what he's about. The thing with him, though, that I think needs to be said ahead of this game being played, optically, if Michigan loses to Ohio State, let's just go ahead and say it doesn't look pretty. Let's just say it's a 10 to 14-point game and it makes you feel uncomfortable with what your team looks like if you're a Michigan fan. Let's just put ourselves in that world for a second. It's going to be very easy for people in the college football world and maybe even some Michigan fans to say, well, he's not a Michigan guy, JD, and that's why we lost that game. It doesn't mean enough to him. And part of that is, well, you had a guy who was a Michigan guy who had Ohio State's number several years in a row, and Jim Harbaugh. And so the thought process could be now, whether it's fair or not, hey, we need someone who is from this place, who gets this place, who is about this place, and if you're not that, you're not going to be able to control this series against Ohio State. Not saying it's true, but I'm just saying that narrative starting out, your first year on the job, I want to feel that great, right? So we'll see what happens there. But here's what I just want to make sure I say. If you hear nothing else, hear this. This game, having massive playoff stakes, is perfect for this sport. It's what this sport needs. I want to rewind the tape a little bit. 2022, we get to go to this game in Columbus, Ohio, where Michigan beats Ohio State, and J.J. McCarthy accounted for like 4 touchdowns, and it was like C.J. Stroud's last game against Michigan. It was just like, it was emotional. It was a game that was close at half, and then Donovan Edwards broke it open in the second half. It was awesome when it comes to environment and for the storylines, all those things. That game was a college football playoff play-in game, and you could feel it being in that stadium, being in the shoe. Like, the rivalry itself will always transcend the playoff. Do not misunderstand me. But with this game having even higher stakes attached to it, I was like, this is special. This is awesome. I'm going to miss this when we expand the playoff to 12 teams. Because logic says now, if more teams can make the playoff, those final games of the regular season probably don't have play-in stakes the way they would in a 4-team tournament, right? Well, by nature of these schedules and by nature of what the Big Ten is right now, with Indiana popping up in a big way, with USC being someone you got to deal with Illinois kind of holding up there under the bargain, Iowa's never an easy out. You'd like to think this game will probably have a little bit more juice to it, because I don't think either Michigan or Ohio State feel amazing about their chances of rolling in with a whole lot less than one loss. Food for thought. So my take is, this is how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to get the biggest games with the most emotion, with the most pageantry, with the most history behind them, quite frankly, with the highest stakes. When we get those things happening, that is best for college football. Because big stakes mean more eyeballs. More eyeballs mean more people getting to see how special Ohio State and Michigan is, and that is just always going to be good for the sport. So there's a part of me that was worried we're going to lose that when we expanded to 12. If these schedules trend the way that they could trend, Michigan, Ohio State for a playoff spot, dude, the way that it was in the 4-team era, tell me you wouldn't kill to see that. Not kill. Tell me you wouldn't jaywalk to see that, all right? But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Will we see Michigan, Ohio State for a playoff spot? Gosh, I hope so. Gosh, I hope so. As someone who's not having a dog in the fight either side, I really hope so. Now, Michigan, if they want to get to that game against Ohio State unbeaten, it's going to have to go through Oklahoma in week 2 of the college football season. So let's go ahead and take a look at Oklahoma's schedule here before we round out this show. Oklahoma, when you look at the schedule as a whole, it's not the upside down of what you had a year ago, and you made the playoff with that schedule, so a little pat on the back there for the folks in Norman. The thing that sticks out to me first about the schedule, there's a blessing and a curse of this schedule being front-loaded. Like, 3 of your 4 toughest games you're playing before mid-October, with at Michigan, at Georgia, Red River in Texas. Like, that's going to be probably your best roster talent tests, I'd have to believe. Also, 2 of those being on the road and 1 being a neutral site. I think the Michigan game is going to be a tone setter for Oklahoma yet again this year. Remember when we watched that game? It was prime time. It was week 2. It was game day there and all those things. We saw Oklahoma kind of burst onto the scene in that game with John Mateer throwing darts and running for touchdowns. It was kind of that moment of okay, Oklahoma is going to be a factor in this season. Don't know what they're going to be factored into, but they're going to be a factor some way, somehow in this season. I think when we watch them go to the Big House in week 2 this upcoming season, it'll be the same kind of test. We'll know a lot about Oklahoma really early on in this one, all right? So the blessing and the curse of this thing. The curse is there's no time for that morning coffee to hit, Oklahoma. And we get to show up and play a few games and kind of figure out if John Mateer's thumb is all the way back healthy and how, the defense is looking. No, it is go mode from the jump. You do not have a couple of games to wander around. You got to be on your P's and Q's from the jump right away. Not just the Michigan game, but being at Georgia as well. Back-to-back SEC champ at their place, not going to be a layup by any stretch of the imagination, all right? So that's the curse. The blessing, though, is you should kind of know where you stand by mid-October in the playoff conversation. Hey, do we have to win out like we did in November to make the playoff? Brent Venables' team having to win out so far now in a pretty good spot with what they did last year with back against the wall post Ole Miss, just saying. But if Oklahoma goes 2-1 in those 3 games, are they not in just come and see me mode? You know what I'm saying? Is Oklahoma not okay, maybe we're not unbeaten, but we did more than fine in that 3-game stretch, and everyone else we have to play doesn't strike that much fear into us, here we freaking go if we're Oklahoma? I think that'd kind of be the confidence level you'd have if you're a Sooner fan or if you're in that building in general. Oklahoma has a chance to tell themselves who they are, even before the month of November. And that itself, I think, is very, very, very dangerous for a team that, when they found their stride, when they found that identity in the month of November, arguably the toughest out in all of college football. For that stretch, at least they were. Now, that's the first part of the schedule. But I think the luxury, if you're an Oklahoma fan, when it comes to the schedule, last year, you were trying to figure out who your football team was going to be while heavily factoring in what that schedule was. Like you were saying, we might be good, but we have the toughest schedule in college football. 8-4 means we're a good football team, but it's not a record we're super excited about at this point under Brent Venables. Like, what does that make us? I don't think that's your same situation you're in this year, if you're a Sooner fan. Whatever you think about Oklahoma is about Oklahoma this year, not their schedule. Because I look up and down the schedule, and like there's a whole lot of, we'll see with some of these teams. Like Kentucky, love Will Stein. Love what they've done through the portal. I like them getting Kenny Minchie. We'll see what they are. At Mississippi State. Well, Mississippi State was bad last year. Straight up. South Carolina. I love Lenore Stellars. They were bad last year. We'll see. At Florida. You got to go to the Swamp. Not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, but like first-year head coach. And you made the playoff last year. We'll see. Ole Miss. Who's playing quarterback? If it's Trinidad Chambliss, different discussion. If it's Deuce Knight, we'll see. At Missouri, who's playing quarterback for them? Austin Simmons, Matt Zollers. We'll see. All of those games, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you should feel pretty good about just your side of that equation, being able to handle business. Not calling it right now, but like that's how I would feel if I was an Oklahoma fan. So for these schedule breakdowns now, what we've been doing, we've been setting the line ourselves for what we think Vegas will put them at or what we think is fair. I think Vegas will operate with a hook in this equation, meaning that they'll have whatever number they give to Oklahoma with like a half game attached to it. I think there's still some games on there that Vegas will say, we could see Oklahoma slipping up there, and they'll give them like a win total of 8.5. I lean more optimistic on Oklahoma. Vegas probably won't do this, but I think Oklahoma being at 9 wins on the over-under is probably the right place to put them, just because I go back to things that I saw last year that I think I can trust for next year. Like John Mateer, he's still there. Everyone's talking about what he was when he finished the season. What he finished the season and what we got to start the season, two very different John Mateers. You got Spirit of Halloween John Mateer, second half of the year, and you have the real John Mateer, the first half of the year. It's how I'm viewing that, all right? So if that's the true lens to assess this thing, John Mateer being like in the Heisman conversation, if that's the guy you get, you should feel pretty good about going 2-1 in that 3-game stretch to start your season before mid-October, right? I mean, you should feel pretty good about the Ole Miss game and the game at Florida and all those things. South Carolina, you should feel good about those like games that you have a small sense of anxiety about by nature of whatever that other team has at quarterback or their roster or the road environment, whatever that is. Like you should feel pretty good about trusting John Mateer. And then I'm always going to trust that Brent Venables defense at this point. Just like death, taxes, Brent Venables having a really good defense. Why? Because he's earned it. He's earned it. Last year, I keep saying this, but I got to say it again, they lost their leaders on defense. Danny Stutzman, heart and soul that defense at linebacker. Billy Bowman, stud safety for them on the back end in 2024. Lost both those guys. 2025, they got better. What does that tell you? Oklahoma has been adding talent at the correct level to be where they want to be defensively. And if they're not at that level, Brent Venables is going to make sure they do that. That's why they got Jim Nagy in the fold now as the general manager. So I think that the DNA of Oklahoma is just, I think without question, at a spot where they're going to be a tough out regardless. But all those things with the defense, John Mateer, and his progress from year 1 to year 2 in Norman and now going into year 4 under Arbuckle, I trust what they're going to be. I said it on a previous video. I'm a believer in what they have going on in Norman, and with the schedule not being what it was a year ago, hard to sell right now anything when it comes to the Sooner stock, all right? So Oklahoma fans, let me know your thoughts on the over-under win total, what you would set it out for your Sooners. But for me, I feel like 9 wins, and honestly, you can lean over on that right now in February. I think that's probably a fair spot for Vegas to set the line as it stands right now. All right? Hey, long show today. Lengthy one today, but we appreciate y'all making this show what it is. We're talking college football year-round. We just did an hour-and-a-half college football show during the month of February. Sickos, unite. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you are subscribed. All right? For Cato on the ones and twos, for myself, JD PicKell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.